Hey, howdy, hey, Freddy Fazbear Entertainment employees and rest of you, Wolfman47 here. Now, anyone who's been been subscribed to my channel for a while now will know that I've played every single, well, not every single, but most of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. Never quite finished or completed them, but I have done a great deal of them. So I've played most of the main games, some of the spin-off games, read some of the books. I've seen both films. So I think out of all of that is now finally time to talk about each of them and give you my thoughts and reviews on them and everything. So to begin with, I'll first of all say that the first game was Scott Cawthon's make or break game, because at the time he was already failing with creating these sort of Christian video games. Then he made this one game where it turns out the characters in there were very creepy looking, so he wanted to take advantage of that and created the first game, and then the rest is history. It became a surprise hit for him, a huge franchise and everything, and it's become the big franchise that's become today. So let's kick things off with the very first game in the series, simply known as Five Nights at Freddy's. So you all know how this goes. So you play as a night god who's stuck in an office that has to fend off animatronics coming in left, right, and centre. So the animatronics are these four characters. So Freddy Fazbear, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy. Three of them on the stage, while Foxy is covered in a curtain for various reasons. And while they sort of remain stationary during the day, during the night they like to roam around, and it's down to the security guard to make sure that he or she watches the place over before the animatronics try and get him or her. So usually as the game goes, you play through each night, and the nights get gradually more difficult, and the general census is that you'd have to defend off against the various animatronics. So in this game you get two doors that you can press the light and the close buttons on, so you can check if the animatronics there or not. There's also security cameras, so you can check the animatronics movements, and you basically are tasked with trying to make sure you conserve as much power as you can before the night shift is over. So you start from 12 a.m. so midnight till 6 a.m. in the morning in game time. That's pretty much sums up most of the early games, where it's quite literally five nights, but you do get additional nights when you complete the game, so you can sort of test yourself and do some bit more challenging stuff, and also explore the lore and so forth a bit. Obviously, because this was the make or break game for Scott Cawthon, it meant that there wasn't as much lore and everything established in this game as there would be in later games. So yeah, it was a make or break game, and it was a surprise hit from YouTubers, and I think it's a very simple and straightforward game. It's probably one of those games that you wouldn't really play if you're very much into AAA titles, but if you want a game that's like simple, straightforward, and challenges you, and that doesn't need much in the way of hardware, then this is definitely the game for that. So FNAF 1 gets a very simple 8 out of 10 from me. So next is obviously Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So this one is because the games are usually left to interpretation as to where they're all set, where they all take place, and everything, because the story was not really explored much. This one, many people would say, is a prequel to the first game, because Phone Guy's still present, and it feels like there's other stuff happening, but nevertheless you still get the sense that there may also be a sequel, because Phone Guy does mention that it's the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but who knows. So this time around you don't need to worry about power, but you do need to worry about your flashlight, because your flashlight has batteries and so forth. And this time around you have to monitor animatronics through security cameras again, monitor them in each of the two vents, and then also in front of you as well. And this time you're facing off quite a lot more animatronics. So this time you're facing off against a sort of deformed Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy, as well as their newer counterparts, which are Toy Chica, Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, and Mangle, as well as this other mysterious animatronic called the Puppet, or Marionette, whatever you want to call it. And you also get these other characters such as Balloon Boy and also Golden Freddy, who was also in the previous game, who really just interfere with you and don't really cause game overs or whatever. But yeah, anytime an animatronic in these games gets you, it's a simple jump scare and it's game over, unless otherwise stated. So yeah, so most nights you're once again having to fend off against different animatronics, but you are given a flashlight that you can use to sort of get Foxy out of your tracks. You can use a mask to sort of trick animatronics into thinking you're one of them. And you also have the additional task of winding up the toy box, which is where the marionette is, because once the marionette gets you, it's game over, because only the marionette and Foxy are like the real threats, because they will actually get you regardless of whether you've got the mask on or not, because they are just able to figure out that you're the human. So yeah. The game also features some hidden things, so in between nights you get this sort of cutscene which is sort of set in the first game, where you get to sort of see the animatronics in a very sort of weird way, and you also get to play these sort of retro looking mini games that occur randomly, but you usually get them after a certain period of game overs that you get, which kind of helps sort of bring sort of the lore and mystery into it. So we get introduced to Purple Guy and the Bio of 87 and everything everything that pretty much the phone guy has said. So yeah, so Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is probably a more difficult and more complicated game if you don't know what you're doing, but it's otherwise still as straightforward as you can get. Not much else to it, and again, you don't need much hardware to run it. So I'm going to give it a slightly higher 9 out of 10. So then came Five Nights at Freddy's 3. So this one is an interesting one because it's the first game to have one night where there's no animatronics present. It's just a simple training night, so you can get used to the controls and everything. There's only one animatronic they have to be aware of, which is Springtrap, whom is later revealed to be Purple Guy actually in there, if you want to believe the theories and everything. And there are some other animatronics, but they're sort of phantoms, meaning that they will jump scare you, but they will otherwise not cause a game over. They'll just interfere with things. And in this time round, in addition to the real Springtrap, who will be the real animatronic that will kill you, the phantom animatronics are Freddy, Chica, the Marionette, the Puppet, and I think either Foxy or Mangle, maybe both of them. Yeah, and Bonnie isn't present because obviously the Springtrap is technically a Bonnie kind of animatronic, if you want to go with that. And you're basically tasked with monitoring the Springtrap animatronic, and also sort of making sure all the things that are running in this horror attraction that it's set in don't fail. So you have to make sure that you reset and start them up again and everything. All while trying to fend off against the one single animatronic and the phantoms. Also, to make things even more complicated, you also get to do these mini games. So you have to do sort of certain things, and these mini games sort of help give you a better ending, because this is one of a few games in the series that gives you multiple endings. So in this case, you get two endings: one where all the lights from the original animatronics are off, and another where they're still on, and you can kind of get why that is. You also get mini games sort of between nights, which sort of see Purple Guy committing basically seeing how Purple Guy got killed, and gradually as it goes on. So yeah, this one to me was okay. It was a fine game, but I think Springtrap definitely had it in for a lot of us playing it, because it definitely came across as one of those characters that definitely took great satisfaction in trying to kill you, even with that creepy smile on its face. so yeah, but yeah, if you're wanting a much better finale for the FNAF games, this definitely wasn't it. But at the time, Scott Cawthon thought it was going to be the end, but yeah, it wasn't in the end, ironically. So yeah, so I'm gonna also give it, in addition, just like with the first game, an 8 out of 10, because I think I do enjoy it. But yeah, it's not the ending that many people hoped for. Of course, it didn't end because we did get later games. And then comes the final of the numbered titles, which is Five Nights at Freddy's 4. So this time around, Scott Cawthon really wanted to make a game that was very much as scary and as horror as you can get, because all the games up until this point were described as sort of horror games, but not really that scary to a lot of people. So this time it's full on horror. So this time around, it brings a lot of firsts to the series. So this time around, you're not an employee for any Fazbear Entertainment property. You are a child in your room fending off against nightmare versions of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and then there's this nightmare version of a character that's involved in the Bite of 83. A nightmare version, a thing that's known simply as Nightmare, and then in the Halloween edition, you also get to fend off against nightmare versions of the Marionette and Balloon Boy, and also Plush Trap is also there as well, which kind of helps sort of takes away 2 hours off the usual clock, so you can get to complete the night quickly. So it's set in the child's bedroom. No phone guy this time. No security cameras or any other trips and traps and everything. No, you're just straight up in the room, and you're basically having to fend off from 4 different angles. So you got the bed where Freddy will appear if you don't fend off against the little Fraggle creatures. You got the left door and the right door where you have to fend off against Bonnie and Chica, and then you got the closet where Foxy may appear in there at some point. And as the nights go on, these nightmare versions do get much more terrifying, and by the time you reach the final night, you have to fend off against one singular nightmare animatronic who takes over from them all, called Fredbear. And yeah, it's as scary as you can get. The animatronics are scary looking. The mini games definitely sort of give some sort of idea as to how the Bite of 87 or the Bite of 83, as the game makes out it is, plays out. You all know the Markiplier lines and everything. So yeah, this was definitely at the time a much better ending for what was going to be the ending for Five Nights at Freddy's, because it's established some more lore and stuff, and it's kind of sort of seen as a prequel to all the games, whereas the third one was a sequel to the first game, and yeah, you get the idea with that. But yeah, it is much more difficult, and it's definitely a game where you really have to be careful when you play, and I do like it for that. And it also kind of gives us some extra bits at the end, not just extra nights to play, but also some extra stuff too. Like we can sort of have a closer look at the animatronics this time, instead of just having to work out how they are as the night goes on. So I'm going to give Five Nights at Freddy's 4 a 9 out of 10, because I think it's the best one of the 4 numbered games, only because it does offer actual horror elements to it this time. So yeah. So after that, we then got a kind of sort of spin-off to the games, but it's up to you whether you want to consider it a main game or not. But anyway, Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. So this time around, instead of 5 nights where you have to fend off against animatronics for a certain period of time, this time you have to do 5 nights, but you're doing different jobs, because you're looking after this facility called the sister location, which is a completely different Five Nights at Freddy. It's completely different for Fazbear Entertainment sort of establishment, or whether it is titled or not. And it's basically a case of you have to fend off against animatronics that actually talk to you this time, as if they are sort of spirits and everything, ultimately becoming this one massive animatronic towards the end. And it's interesting because this one actually feels like a game that's sort of well made, because you're doing different tasks during the night. So there's one where you have to get through a room where there's this one animatronic that might be spinning around, sort of doing a little ballet dance and everything. So you have to really listen to hear her out. There's another one where you have to turn on all the switches while fending off against this Freddy like animatronic, known for saying "Hey Bon Bon" and all that. And another way where you're having to sort of turn the power on and everything. And then there's kind of like 2 endings to this as well, because towards the end of this game, you get to you get to fend off against this one single animatronic, and then if you do that the same night again, you can go to another event, and you get to experience the first Five Nights at Freddy's game all over again, albeit this time with just a singular animatronic. And I think I like this game a lot because it's different to what we've had before. Usually we've had to fend off against animatronics, and again we do still have to fend off against animatronics this time, but we do have other jobs to do as well while doing that, so it does make it a little bit more difficult and a little bit more interesting, but I do still like it for that. And I think it does sort of offer more sort of a terrifying horror element to it as well, just like with the previous game, because the robots actually do look quite terrifying, and especially when they're talking, it's like quite terrifying looking and everything. So yeah, Sis location is also implied to be where Purple Guy or William Afton, as we know, as him, works at in different minigames. But yeah, exotic butters. Who knew that was such a thing? I didn't. So yeah. So I'm going to give Sister Location also a 9 out of 10 because it's a much more imaginative and creative game, and yeah, it kind of makes the formula just that little bit more interesting. So next, if I can find it, bear with me, is Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, and I've actually forgot to turn the tab on for that in Chrome, but it's okay, I remember it pretty well. In fact, it's actually here. I've found it. So Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator is exactly what you think it is. It's a game that lets you create your own Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with animatronics and everything. And how it works is strange, because to begin with, you're tasked with sort of testing different animatronics, and you have to make sure that they meet all the tests, and you have to keep watching them as you do the form so that they don't move and suddenly attack you or anything. And any that you keep will be kept in the facility, and after you've sort of created your own Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria, you then have to spend some time in the office sort of printing out menus and so forth for the next day and everything, and while you're doing that, you have to fend off against animatronics that might be hearing your machine and everything, so you have to fend off against them. And in this game, it's kind of implied that this is the final game of the original series, or of the Scott Cawthon era of Five Nights at Freddy's, because you get several endings. One of the endings being that with everyone in the facility, so William Afton, Circus Baby, and everyone else that's kind of involved, even one of the other co-owners, the whole place gets burned to the ground, and it's basically exactly what you think it is, the ending to Scott Cawthon's era. But it's down to you if you think that is the end, but personally for me, I think that was the ending to the original series, and then after that point it was then down to whichever developer it was that started the later games. But I do think it was right for Pizzeria Simulator to at least give us the chance to create our own Freddy Fazbear's Pizza after so long trying to defend animatronics against already created things. So yeah, in that sense, it is very interesting to have a Pizzeria Simulator, but at the same time it also kind of feels like it's a very cheaply made game, because it was a game that was available for free, and I think it still is available for free on Steam and others. But yeah, it's very cheaply made compared to other games where it feels like there was more effort going into those games than this, but I don't know. Anyway, so Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, 7 out of 10, only because it feels much more cheaply made than the previous games, where it feels like there was some more effort put to it, and it doesn't feel that scary to me. So yeah. So next is Ultimate Custom Night. So this was the very last game that Scott Cawthon created before handing the reins over to another developer, and it's pretty much what you think it is. It's a big arse mode where you can get where all the animatronics you've had up until this point, you can place them in as many nights as you want, and just fend off against them as the game goes on. And it's not a scary game or whatever. It's just a game that's made for the fans, just to give us just to sort of experiment and do your own thing with it. It does have some cutscenes, voice acting, and everything, but it's otherwise sort of seen as Purple Guy's hell, because Purple Guy is well and truly dead at this point. So this is basically his hell, just seeing all these seeing all these animatronics at long last finally try to give him his comeuppance and everything. So yeah, and it's pretty much what you think. It's very fun, very entertaining, not at all scary, but very fun, very entertaining, and you get to do your own nights the way you want to do them. So yeah, so I'm going to give Ultimate Custom Night a 9 out of 10. And just want to check my list. Yep, so next, so before we move on to the Steel Wool games and also other games that are made by other developers, next game I'm going to talk about is FNAF World. So while I was doing the original set of FNAF games in my first year of doing lots of YouTubing, FNAF World was a game that Clank Zoka recommended that I play, and it's pretty much a game that it's kind of like it's basically a role-playing game. So you get to play as a group of animatronics, and you have to fend off against other animatronics and explore the world and everything. And it doesn't really have any sort of connection to the series, other than it's sort of a very child-friendly, family-friendly kind of game, but still very much has like scary elements and jump scares and so forth. But yeah, it's very much a role-playing game. Doing your own thing and so forth. Unfortunately, it's not really available in most places. It's still available on Game Jolt, and it was for a while available on Steam, but obviously it was taken down for various reasons, specifically because of its technical issues and unfinished stuff. And yeah, it is what it is. FNAF World, interesting game. I don't think I would call it my favourite game of the series, but it's definitely an interesting idea of seeing a franchise take on a genre that's not usually taken on. Other franchises have done this as well, and I think it's great when a franchise that has a lot of potential does take on other forms of different genres of games, because it just means that there's no stopping them from the potential of what they can do and everything. So yeah. So FNAF World gets a 7 out of 10 from me. So that brings us on to the book, the novelizations, the novels, which kind of sort of establish a different story, settings and everything, but are still otherwise as Five Nights at Freddy's as you can get. So I should say that many people would say that the games are in its own universe, the books are in its own universe, and the films are in their own universe, because they're all following like different stories and so forth, but otherwise it's still very much as similar as you can get. So in this first book, the Silver Eyes, I'll just come back.
A few moments later.
Sorry about that. I had an Amazon delivery driver arrive with some presents for people, because I'm recording this before Christmas. Just bear with. I'll catch my breath. Right, so Silver Eyes. So this is based on a best-selling horror video game series, obviously Five Nights at Freddy's. The book follows a young woman named Charlotte who reunites with her childhood friends on the anniversary of a tragedy that ripped their town apart. It's been exactly 10 years since the murders at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzas, and Charlotte, who goes by the name Charlie, has spent the last 10 years trying to forget. Her father had owned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and has built its 4 adult-sized animatronic animals. After meeting up with her friends, curiosity led them back to the old pizza place, and they found it in disrepair but still standing. They discover a way inside, but things are not as they used to be. The 4 mascots that delighted and entertained them as children have changed. Animatronics have a dark secret and a murderous agenda. So yeah, this is, I guess you could say, this is basically the first game, but with a bit of story to it, and also follows various different theories and stories and some drama parodies, whatever, in which a group of children or teenagers enter Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, delinquents doing stuff, and then end up finding out that there's animatronics are not as they make out to be. So it's basically every horror film you've ever seen. It's teenagers doing silly things, and then they get murdered. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. But the Five Nights at Freddy's version of that, it's pretty good from what I recall, and I did quite enjoy reading the book. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Bringing us on to, if I can find it, bear with, the Twisted Ones. Oh, excuse me. So Twisted Ones is the second of these 3 novels. So this time out, it's been a year since the horrific events at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and Charlie is just trying to move on. Even with the excitement of a new school and a fresh start, she's still haunted by nightmares of a masked murderer and 4 gruesome animatronic puppets. Charlie thinks her ordeal is over, but when a series of bodies are discovered near her school, bearing wounds they are disturbingly familiar, she finds herself drawn back into the world of her father's funny creations. Something twisted is haunting Charlie, and this time, if it finds her, it's not letting her go. So, yeah, I think this was the book that sort of heavily inspired the second film, but I will get to the second film a little later on. But I thought this was a good read as well. Not much to it, but it's pretty much what you think it is, and it's definitely sort of a bit more interesting compared to the first book, which just feels like every horror film ever, just in a book form. So yeah, so I'm gonna give the Twisted Ones I'll give it an 8 out of 10. So which brings us on to the fourth closet, the third and final book in the original trilogy series. I know there's like lots of graphic novels as well, but unfortunately I've not read any of the graphic novels, so yeah, but as and when I get to read them, I might do a video on them, I might not, we'll see. So what really happened to Charlie? It's the question that John can't seem to shake, along with the nightmares of Charlie's seeming death, spoilers, and miraculous reappearance. John just wants to forget the whole terrifying saga of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but the past isn't so easily buried. Meanwhile, there's a new animatronic pizza opening in Hurricane. Okay, that's a place, never knew that. Along with a new rash of kidnappings that feel all too familiar. Bound together by their childhood loss, John reluctantly teams up with Jessica, Maria and Carlton, interesting name, to solve the case and find the missing children. On the way, they unravel the twisted mystery of what really happened to Charlie and alternate legacy of her father's creations. So I guess this one is basically sort of trying to sort of wrap things up and everything, and I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've read all these novels, so I'm just going by what I remember. But yeah, again, another good read. Not much else to talk about it, because as I say, I don't remember them all that well, and I didn't really find the time to read, although I could have read them, but yeah, anyway. So but I remember liking this one as well. I think all the books are pretty good, I'll be honest. So yeah, so I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. So let me just check. Yeah, so next we move on to the first VR game of the series, and also the first game in the Steel Wool era of, well, not Steel Wool, but necessarily, but sort of other developers' era of Five Nights at Freddy's, and this one is called Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. So this first game is basically a sort of reimagining, remake, whatever, of most of the games in the series so far. So you get to play all 5 nights of the first 3 games. You get to sort of experience a kind of environment similar to what's seen in the 4th game. Characters from Sister Location are in this as well, and it basically features a lot of different modes. So you get to play the original 5 nights from the first 3 games, as I say. You get to go into the bedroom of the 4th game and fend off against a singular animatronic, and you can pick between each animatronics. And things are usually unlocked as and when you finish each minigame. You also get to do this other minigame where you get to perform maintenance on the different animatronics, and also with the Halloween DLC, you get some interesting bits there as well. So you get to go through a maze, and you have to avoid Foxy where you can. You get to go into this little bit where you have to fend off against Fraggle-like characters and all sorts of other things. And although it's made out that this is just a compilation of mini games and so forth, there is actually an element of you have to find these sort of hidden items to sort of try and understand things. And it once again is one of those games that has multiple endings depending on how you've done. So if you've grabbed all the items, if you've fended off against this mysterious animatronic that's hidden within the game and everything. And the game heavily makes out that this is a light heart, that is basically Freddy Fazbear just sort of acknowledging the theories, rumours and everything, and just doing making this very light-hearted, although it's not quite as light-hearted as you might think. And it's kind of like a sort of what happens if Scott Cawthon was in universe making these games about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and other establishments. So yeah, it's very interesting. I remember it being very long as well, but I kind of enjoyed how long it was, because if you want to experience a version of the original games, but with 3D graphics this time instead of just straight up still graphics and some GIFs and everything, then this is it. And you can experience it in VR, you can experience it flat. Yeah, it's pretty much as fun as you can get with that. So I'm going to give Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted, as well as its Halloween DLC, a solid 9 out of 10. Which brings us on to the next game, which is also developed by Stillwell Studios, called Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. So this one establishes a Freddy Fazbear Entertainment thing as this big multiplex sort of establishment where you got indoor play areas, you got rides, attractions, arcades, and everything. It's pretty much what many of us 90s and noughties kids sort of growing up experienced when we were younger, going to these different things and having just a way of a good time, which unfortunately, to my knowledge, we don't get much of these days. So the game has you play as this little child who basically is trapped in the multiplex and has to survive for one night, and during the night he decides to venture into the megaplex to sort of uncover the truths, secrets, and everything about it, all the while avoiding a lot of animatronics in the process. So with the only animatronic sort of taking his side being Freddy, as long as Freddy gets recharged and everything. So if you remember my Let's Play of it, I only got as far as the sort of daycare area, and obviously Moondrop is quite a vicious animatronic. You have to be very careful with him, because if you get on the wrong side of him, he will take you out. So yeah, I tried to do my best with that, but I didn't get very far. So I went on to the Ruin DLC, and that's basically what you expect it to be. So the Ruin DLC is just a continuation of the story, but you see the Megaplex and Ruin, it's all come to port, just like with all the other Freddy Fazbear Entertainment attractions, they all came to port, so yeah. But I did enjoy this game. I thought it was a very good sandbox game. It's the first FNAF game I'm aware of where it's kind of like having a sandbox kind of experience, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, the animatronics are terrifying. Free roaming around the area can be particularly terrifying. And the fact that you're playing a child the whole time in both this and the DLC it's a little alarming, but it is what it is. But I did enjoy it. So Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, a 9 out of 10. And if I ever do a Let's Play of it again, I will do it and sort of make sure that it gets uploaded properly and everything with quality and stuff, because I know when I initially uploaded it, some random random sort of copyright holder made a good copyright claim for something which wasn't even there, and I tried to claim it to make claims for it and everything, but ultimately nothing came of it. So yeah, the game, and so my video ended up being just SD from that point on. I don't know if it's like HD now, but yeah, anyway, moving on from that. So next up is Help Wanted 2. So Help Wanted 2 is basically, to basically sum it up, it's basically Help Wanted, but this time features things that weren't featured in the previous game. So mini games from sister location that were not in the first one are in this one, including one where you have to avoid Ballora. There's also Security Breach, some Security Breach inspired mini games featuring the animatronics from that game, and it's pretty much like before. You're just doing a series of different mini games with all the different animatronics. I don't think there's like really any sort of major thing to come across this time, or anything secret, as far as I know. But I'll have a look. So yeah, it doesn't really say much about it, but excuse me. But yeah, it's a continuation from Security Breach, and features mainly characters from sister location and Security Breach this time around, with mini games and etc. So yeah, And again, it's in VR and it's got a flat mode as well. So yeah, but I think the first one was much more packed with stuff that people really enjoyed. This one's packed with stuff as well, but excuse me, whether you will enjoy the stuff or not is pretty much down to you, I'd say. So yeah, but personally I thought it was fine, but definitely could have done with much more content, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Next is Into the Pit, which
Exotic
this one
Butters.
is based on one of the graphic novels of the same name, and this is the first time when we actually get to play a pixelated game. And I would say first time because this is actually fully pixelated, not just a game that features mini games that are pixelated. It's actually properly pixelated. So this game was released to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the franchise, so therefore it does feature characters from previous games as it started. So Freddy, Foxy, Chica, and Bonnie are back. Oh, sorry, coughing up a lot of phlegm today. I'm really sorry about that. So you play as this guy who goes with his dad to a Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria sort of place. He and the dad get caught in a ball pit, and in the ball pit, the dad comes out being possessed by this quite menacing animatronic, and it's down to the boy to sort of rescue his dad from this animatronic, and he has to do this by avoiding him, and basically avoiding him in not just the Freddy Fazbear's place, but also his own home as well, which kind of feels like a pixelated version of the fourth game, as well as a pixelated version of the fourth game, and I guess the first game as well. But yeah, it's good fun, very retro looking, and I'm glad that the franchise took a turn to this one, because for too long it was kind of establishing itself that it was set in the 80s and early 90s possibly as well, and finally we get something like this. So yeah, so even though it's not only a spin-off game, I still very much enjoyed it, and it definitely gave me a sort of new idea as to how the franchise can move forward, because I hope that we do get more pixelated games like this, whether it's mainstream or not, and I still enjoyed it. So I'm going to give Into the Pit a 8 out of 10. So final game for now, and then we'll move on to the films. We have Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mix. So I played this game a few months ago for my October videos, because every October now I have to do a FNAF video. And Secret of the Mimic has nothing to do with Fazbear Entertainment, but you go into this facility where because you're a technician, you have to find blueprints and everything, and you go to this facility where Fazbear Entertainment has basically asked this guy to lend or to lease or buy these animatronic figures. So this technician goes there to sort that out, and he has to fend off against animatronics while finding these blueprints and everything. It's pretty much a sort of very much similar to Security Breach, only this time it's you're on your own, and it's a facility more than a megaplex, because megaplex is huge, the facility is not as huge. And as you know, if you've seen my Let's Play, I did get stuck at one point and I didn't get very far beyond that, but for what it was, I enjoyed it, and I wish I could have explored it more. But yeah, it was an enjoyable experience, and I wished I explored it more. But if I do ever decide to do a long playthrough of any of these Five Nights at Freddy's games, then this one will definitely be one of those. I'll try and get past that one animatronic that just got in the way. So yeah. So I'm gonna give Secret of the Mimic a 8 out of 10. And that finally brings us on to the films. So the films are kind of sort of trying to borrow elements from both the games and the books, just to sort of try and give us a definitive story. And because pretty much most of the games are now out at this point, it meant that Scott Cawthon could finally sort of tell his version of events, now finally being able to use as many elements as he can. So with the first film, known simply as Five Nights at Freddy's, we get the Mike Schmidt character, who is played by John Hutcherson, who is going through a period of time struggling with the loss of his brother, and as such is trying to look after his sister, who is much younger but has an aunt and uncle that are desperate to try and get her away from him because they think he's a terrible guardian and all that. And then Mike eventually decides to take up a job at an old facility called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, unaware that the person that's hired him to do that is a certain man of purple. And the film is quite interesting because even though it is solely based on the first game, it does borrow elements from the third game in establishing how William Afton gets killed, and all that, which we don't really explore much of in the first game, but we do see that in the third game. And we also get to sort of see his children in this film. Freddy, Foxy, Chico, and Bonnie all look just like they do in the video game. Not much difference apart from maybe a different shade of colours for the characters. Although I think that might be reflecting on their appearances in later games compared to their appearance in the first game. And in terms of jump scares and everything, there isn't much really scary about it, and that's kind of like the games in general. Anyway, most of them are not really all that scary, and I think when critics saw this film, they didn't quite understand that the franchise is not meant to be, to begin with, wasn't meant to be all that scary. But yeah. The first film I did enjoy, and when we saw it at the cinema, me and Clank had a great audience watching it with us, who were, quoting all the lines and everything, and we were all really having a good time with it, and it was so good, so fun. Yeah, I just think it's one of those films that critics don't get. If you know the games, then you'll understand it just fine, but if you don't, you don't. But I certainly understood it. I certainly enjoyed it. Loved all the references. Loved all the Easter eggs. Loved the cast. And I think they did really well trying to adapt the first game. But it's not all as perfect as it's cracked up to be. But if you're a fan of the franchise, you're not going to be bothered by that, because it's pretty much what you expect a Five Nights at Freddy's film to be. And it's great that it borrowed elements from books and video games as well, not just strictly one or the other. So I'm going to give the first Five Nights at Freddy's film a 9 out of 10. So finally we come to the second film, known as Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which, as you'd expect, is based on the second game, but does also feature elements from other games as well. So this time round we get a sort of backstory behind how William Afton, who's played by Matthew Lillard in the series, and great because he does play villains pretty well. We get an understanding of how he sort of committed the child murders, and we also sort of see Abby, who is played by who's reprising the role by Piper Rubio, who was in the first film as well. She is just sort of trying to sort of go to school, but you got Wayne Knight playing this middle school science teacher who's basically trying to put her off from doing everything, and he's basically doing a very, very obvious job of doing that. He's very much not wanting her there, and he's making it very obvious by sort of doing all these different things, being very angry and so forth and everything. So yeah, and in this one, although we do get to go to the first Five Nights at Freddy's, we also go to another we go to another Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, which a group of people go to, and we sort of see everything we saw from the second game. So the formed animatronics, the marionette, the toy animatronics. And we kind of get an understanding about how those animatronics work compared to how the animatronics in the first establishment worked. And it's interesting because they once again look just like they do in the games. So I'm not sure which company they go to. I think it was the Jim Henson company, but they did a great job with that. I think this second film is probably weaker than the first film, only because it tries ever so hard to make Five Nights at Freddy's 2 work as a film. And it does sort of use the elements of that, but it ultimately sort of has a few drawbacks and a lot of missed opportunities as well. Sister Location is also visited, albeit briefly, in this. And and while I do think Elizabeth Lowe plays Vanessa, William Afton's daughter, while I do find her very attractive, because I think she's a very attractive woman, she kind of plays a part sort of like, I'm not really sure what to make of it, because in the first film she was very much against William Afton, and then in this film it's kind of like she's sort of torn between whether she's against him or with him, and then in the end, without giving away too much, we kind of sort of understand who she allies herself with. We also meet some new characters in this, including Wayne Knight's character, and Matt Pat is back as well. So Matt Pat was the waiter in the first film, and this time he's the voice of Toy Bonnie, but I couldn't tell it was him voicing because it just sounded not like him, and I wanted him to go batshit crazy like he usually does, but no, he didn't, which I thought was a missed opportunity. There's parts that he could have explored much further, like they could have gone much deeper with the cislocation parts. They could have explored a bit more with the whole idea of the next film being based on Five Nights at Freddy's 3, if that does end up becoming a thing. But overall, it's a much weaker film, and it didn't quite help that we had a pretty piss poor audience who, compared to the first film, this time around they were very annoying. They were loud, they were chatting away, making too much noise, putting on the phones. People kept going back and forth on the screen. There was a couple of chatty kids that were making fun of my friend who has this stuttering problem, which I didn't like. And yeah, I think if we do decide to watch any more Five Nights at Freddy's films going forward, if they do make more, me and Clank are probably going to be very careful as to when we go see it, and make sure that we go to see it with an audience that's going to be just like with the first film, get well into it, not too annoying or whatever. But yeah, the audience really ruined it for us. But despite that, I did think there was some enjoyment in this film compared to the first film, because there is more animatronics, and they do all look like the animatronics from the games. They do use the features from the second game, and they also do sort of establish this thing called Faz Fest, which I thought was very interesting, and also a clever idea, because usually when these mysteries and so forth are established, people want to sort of become a cult and make fun of that either, so of course they had to spoil that. I think this was like compared to the first one, this film was written solely by Scott Cawthon. I'm actually going to just double check that. Yeah, it was written just by Scott Cawthon this time, which is fine, because after making so many great games and sort of giving guidance on the current games, it's great that he's given the chance to write it. But yeah, it is a very disappointing sequel. Not a terrible film, mind you, but it's a very disappointing sequel that could have explored more things than it did, and the acting's still a bit So yeah, with a heavy heart, I'm going to give this film the same rating I gave it on Letterboxd, which is a 6 out of 10. And whether the franchise will continue or not at this point, who knows, but it's been great fun playing all the Five Nights at Freddy's games and seeing the films, reading the books and everything, and I do look forward to the day when we get to see more of that and play more of that as time goes on, obviously health pending and everything. So yeah, I think Scott Cawthon did a really good job sort of creating this franchise, because as I said, the Five Nights at Freddy's game, the first one, was make or break for him, and if he didn't make it, it would probably break him, and it would probably destroy him and everything. So I'm really glad that they did it, and it became a surprise hit as a result of so many YouTubers giving it a chance to play and just doing all the things, you probably all know all the lines and stuff that Markiplier, Jacksepticeye and the rest of them will make. Is that a Bio 87? Oh, the first line's not that bad, and all that. Oh, hello, hi. yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, so that's what I've got to say about all the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff that I can muster. I'd love to hear what you think about the games, the books, the films, and so on. I also like to hear if you think there should be a TV series as well, because I do think there should be like an animated sort of TV series going for it. So yeah, sound off in the comments, let me know what you think. But other than that, thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can, please. if you're new to the channel, I usually do vlogs like this on a Thursday, and I also do reviews during the weekend. Other times during the week, on Mondays and Tuesdays, I do gameplay videos where it's just straight up gameplay, nothing else. Following a long game, doing several videos of, and I'm alternating between 4 games at the moment. Every Wednesday I do a Let's Play video of a completely random game that I may or may not return to at a later date. You'll know what Let's Play videos are. Every Thursday I do a vlog talking about all sorts of different topics that just interest me, and the rest of the week, in addition to reviews, I do hauls, rants on live, gameplay compilation videos, videos with friends, shorts, and loads more. See you in the next one. Peace to you all. And remember to never trust what a person on the phone says. Do not trust someone that wears purple unless it's someone that likes the colour purple, because my sister liked purple, so yeah. And if you ever find yourself working in an establishment that has animatronics, make sure you're best prepared. Make sure you got everything ready for it and everything. And for God's sake, if you do have sort of sexual thoughts about making love to animatronics, remember there's children spirits in them, so don't do it. So yeah, alright. Toodles.